In this video, I'm going to do a quick review of some of the vocabulary that we've learned and things you need to know that we have learned so far about quadratic equations. The slideshow is on the Canvas module page for this unit in the test study guide link, the quadratic equation test 1 info. So let's start with the forms of the quadratic equation. First is the standard form, which is y equals ax squared plus bx plus c. In standard form, you can get the vertex by doing negative b over 2a. That gets you the x value of the vertex. And then you will plug in x to find y. And remember, vertex is a point, x comma y. So again, you get the x value of the vertex by doing negative b over 2a. The axis of symmetry is x equals the x value of the vertex. The vertex is either, I'll get to that part after. The domain of a parabola is always negative infinity to infinity. And the range depends, it depends on what the y is, and whether the vertex is a max or a min. So if the vertex is a max, then your range is from negative infinity to that y value. If your vertex is a min, then your range is from y to positive infinity. Because if it is a max, this is the largest y value. And if it is a min, this is the smallest y value, with infinity being the largest. Vertex form is y equals a times x minus h squared plus k, where your vertex is h comma k. Remember that it's the opposite sign, so opposite hk. So if you have a number here and this is minus, your h is positive. If you have a number here and this is plus, your h is negative. Your axis of symmetry is x equals h, and then the domain and the range is the same information. So how do we know if the vertex is a maximum or a minimum? Well, you look at a. So if a is a negative number, then your vertex is a max. If a is a positive number, then your vertex is a minimum. You also have to know your transformation, so let's quickly review these. The a tells you two things. It will tell you if it's skinnier or wider. We said like thinner or wider, and the fancy terms are vertical stretch, or vertical compression, oh, it's right here, vertical compression. So if a is larger than 1, then it is a vertical stretch. Your parabola will look thinner. If a is a fraction, a number between 0 and 1, it'll be wider or vertically compressed, so the parabola will open up wider. H is a horizontal shift, so it's a left-right. So at this point, let's take a look down here. If it is x minus h inside, you're going to the right h amounts, and if it is x plus h, you're going to the left h amount. Think about your vertex. If it's x minus h, your vertex is h comma k. And if it's x plus h, then it's the negative h comma k. So there's your left, and here's your right. So an x minus h inside the parentheses means you're going to the right h steps. X plus h inside the parentheses means you're going to the left h steps. And you're going right or left from the parent function. The parent function of y equals x squared. So you're shifting left or right from this parent function, left, right, or up or down. K is your up and down. If k is positive, you go up. If k is negative, k is positive, you go up. K is negative, you go down. Another thing that a will tell you is it will open up, the parabola will open up if a is positive, and the parabola will open down if a is negative. So just knowing how to take a look at the vertex form and be able to tell all the transformations so that you can then take the parent function and know that it's shifted left, right, up, down, and flipped over. So let's take a look at the answers to these questions. What are the four names of where the quadratic crosses the x-axis? Those are the roots, the x-intercepts, the zeros, solutions. So they are where the quadratic crosses the x-axis. There could be two roots, there could be one root, or there could be no roots. Okay. How do you find a y-intercept? Well, a y-intercept is a point where the parabola hits the y-axis. So you will set x equal to 0. So let's say I wanted to find the y-intercept, 2x squared plus 3x plus 7. Let's say I wanted to find the y-intercept of that quadratic. Well, I'll just make x equal 0, because a y-intercept is 0 comma something. And that's the point where it'll hit the y-axis. So if I put 0 here and here, I get 2 times 0 plus 3 times 0 plus 7. Looks like my y-intercept is 0 comma 7. How do we find an x-intercept? Well, one way to find it is by graphing. If you graph the parabola, you could see where the parabola crosses the x-axis. But more reliable is by setting y equal to 0, factoring, and solving. So that's when we made sure the equation was set equal to 0, we factored the quadratic, and then we set each factor, you set each factor equal to 0 and got your solutions. What is the discriminant? The discriminant is b squared minus 4ac. What does the discriminant tell you? It tells you how many roots, how many x-intercepts the quadratic has. So for example, if it has 2 roots, your discriminant was positive. If it has 1 root, your discriminant was 0. And if it has no roots, your discriminant was negative. So again, be sure you know the steps to solve a quadratic equation by factoring. And remember, if you go to solve a quadratic equation by factoring, and if the quadratic has 2 terms, you're either going to be doing GCF factoring or a difference of squares. Always remember when you are solving a quadratic equation by factoring that it is set equal to 0 first, because that is the equivalent of y being equal to 0, and we are finding x-intercepts, so y must be equal to 0. Last but not least, these are the warm-ups we've been doing today and yesterday in class. How to transfer from vertex form into standard form. You're basically following the algebra here. So in vertex form, you've got a times x minus h squared plus k. We got to square that binomial by doing FOIL, so x plus 3 times x plus 3 here. FOIL that out. Distribute your 2, and then subtract with 22, and here's my quadratic in standard form. Now that I have it in standard form, I can list A, B, and C. Now this is only useful to me if I have to factor and if I have to find the discriminant, okay? I don't need to do that to find the vertex because I've got the vertex right here for this parabola at -3, -22. There's my vertex. But if I have to factor to find the roots, or I have to find the discriminant, b squared minus 4ac, then yes, I will want it in standard form. If you have any questions about the study guide as you work through it or about any content of this video, please don't hesitate to reach out to me either via email or via Remind or via Canvas message prior to Friday's test. Thanks for watching.